Good evening, everyone. It's a beautiful day. It's a great day. I'm happy to rejoin with you again tonight after a long while, which we have been busy for fasting and praying and our anniversary and all that. It's good to come back to continue with Awaken the Leadership in You. So, welcome back to this session. And remember, we finished off our book the last time, Learning Leadership. That's what we finished up with before we had about almost 3 weeks break, but busy doing something else. So tonight we are going to still on leadership, and I want you to know that this study on leadership cuts across all the spheres of our lives, be it business, even though majority of the books we are looking at are business books, but your perspective or your approach to life is that you got to have to see your life also as a business. What do I mean by that? Because you as an entity, you have to be managed, and your life is going to have to be profitable. Jesus, said, what does he profit a man if he loses his own soul? If he gains the whole world but loses his own soul. So there's a language of business that Jesus Christ is using over there to compare our life with. That, but what is business? It's transaction, it's exchange of values. So you got to have to see your life, both your spiritual life, your physical life, your mental life, your emotional life, as a form of business, that you are your own incorporation, you incorporated. What does that mean? It means you are a business entity that runs on 2 feet, and therefore you cannot afford to drop balls in every area that matters in your life. You're going to have to be able to see, to read your you got to have to get the right skills to manage your life. Because you see, the whole of life is all about management, really. Remember, I read to us the other day, Genesis chapter 2, which I don't mind to go back to again. Genesis chapter 2, verse 5, which says, "Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up." Take note of this. No shrub, this is vegetation. No plant, is still talking about vegetation, had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to walk the ground. The reason why God had not allowed anything to spring forth, to grow on earth, because there was no man to till the earth. So God created man for management, because God himself is a manager par excellence, is a leader par excellence. So he created us in his image. So for this reason, Awakening the Leadership in You broadcast and looking into these different books, business books, that's what it means. Business books that the business book that emphasize development, personal development, business books that emphasize mental agility, and how to improve yourself, how to improve your life, how to improve yourself. These are the books we're looking at, and this is about the sixth one that we're looking at since September last year. So I want you to see yourself as an entity that needs to be managed. And guess what? You are the trustee of your own life. Why? Because your life is a trust handed over to you by God, to with time to have to give an account of how you have managed it. because there is coming a day of reckoning that God is going to say, yeah, I gave you life, but what did you do with it? So if you had not been responsible to manage it as we want you to manage it, then you'll be ashamed on the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. So ultimately, your life is an entity that needs to be managed. And one of the ways to manage your life effectively is to gather the necessary skill sets that can help you to be efficient and be effective and be able to be profitable with your life in line with the purpose of God for your life. There again, it shows in that Genesis chapter 2, verse 5. So, what we're doing here in this program is to be able to combine spiritual truth with natural truth. Listen, the natural comes out of the spiritual, really. If you can understand the principles that give birth to the phenomena of our life that make things run effectively, you may be wondering, why is this life not broken down at the edges and everything scattered? Why? Because there are principles that are embedded in life. The creator created a system that is self-perpetuating with minimal supervision. However, it still keeps watch over him. So also we have to know that also, if you can understand the principles and the processes by which all these things work, we will be better managers. We will not regret our life. We will know that our life is going somewhere. We will have a direction for living. We will have a direction for life. We will know that, listen, you are born for a purpose. You are a purposeful being. And therefore, your life as an entity, what is it that you are marketing? What is it that you are? And remember, when you market something, you are projecting the value of it for others so that they can take they can take it from you, they can exchange it for something. So is your life. When you make your life valuable by looking after your life, others will come and partake of your life in exchange for what they also have to give to you. You got to have to understand that principle. It is not man-made, it's God-made, and it is inherent in nature. So we continue with this broadcast today as we start to read another book entirely. Listen, again, I like to say to us that these principles cut across every strata, every phases, every sphere of our life. Home management, personal management, leadership, ministry, career, business, everything. Everything. It's all about leadership. It's all about managing yourself, managing your resources, and managing your opportunities, managing your privileges, and having the right balance to life. So when we're looking at the dichotomy of leadership today, that's exactly what it is. It's a balancing the challenges of extreme ownership to lead and win. Now, I need to also bring this, align this with the values of God's kingdom. The truth of the matter is that in God's kingdom, nobody owns anything. However, everybody is a manager of everything. He's a manager of what has been apportioned to him. So, and if you're a manager of what has been apportioned to you, you know the ultimate owner, who is the Lord, because the word Lord means owner by the word itself, it means owner. It means the manager one day is at the onset, the manager is given opportunity to manage for a particular time. There is a time frame in which your life is going to have to be managed from the entry point to the exit point. Your destiny is measured in time. Your opportunity is measured in time. After death, it is sealed. Judgment is sealed. What is judgment? That is reward and punishment become sealed after you exit the earth. So within the time frame in which you operate, therefore, you got to have to understand, I am not an owner per se, but I am a trustee of a resource. Life by itself is a resource. And therefore, I need to know how to manage what has been entrusted into my hand, so that I can give an account to the owner one day of how I managed it. Amen. And if you go through the whole of the Bible, this is what underpins every area in the Bible. So you got to have to do it according to the owner's manual. You got to have to do it according to the owner's dictates. You got to have to do it according to the owner's instruction. Who is the owner we're talking about here? Our Lord Jesus Christ. By whom all things were made, by whom all things consist. So tonight, starting again, a new book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, Balancing the Challenges of Extreme Ownership to Lead and Win, written by Joko Willink and Leif Babin. Joko Willink and Leif Babin served as U.S. Navy SEAL officer. You know the SEAL? Oh, that's top rank unit of the Navy in the United States Navy. They serve as SEAL officers in the Naval Special Warfare Task Unit. The unit was the most highly decorated special operations unit of the Iraq War. After leaving the Navy, Babin and Willink formed Echelon Front, a leadership training company which makes their military experiences and uses that to teach business people how to build, how to train, and lead high-performance teams. Willink and Babin are the authors of Extreme Ownership, which was a New York Times bestseller. Joko Willink is also the author of Discipline Equals Freedom, Way of the Warrior Kid, and Max Mission. Joko Willink is a graduate of the University of San Diego. Leif Babin graduated from the United States Naval Academy. I want you to see that what we are doing with each book is a summary. We're trying to look at the cogent points in the book. I could not say that maybe I finished reading 2 books in the last few years. But in the moment that we started looking at these summaries, see, we've covered quite a ground. We have looked at repetition is the mother of learning. The more we are repeating and looking at leadership from different dimensions, different ways, the better it is for us, and the more it becomes reinforced. So the main idea of this book is that the leadership is a balancing act. It's always a balancing act. That is, great leaders know when to lead out and when to be good followers instead. The truth of the matter is that there is no way you can lead if you are not following. You begin to say, well, I mean, that's a contradictory, it's oxymoron, it's contradictory. You're a leader and you are also a follower. Of course, you always have to follow in order for you to know how to lead. Ultimately, our greatest leader is the Lord Jesus. So if you and I don't know how to follow him, forget it. We will not be able to know how to lead others. We will not be able to know how to exercise the right influence on others. Oh, because our propensities sometimes can be very damaging to ourselves. And therefore, we need somebody to look up to. Moreover, the word man in Greek, anthropos, means somebody that looks up. God created us to look up. So, great leaders know when to lead out and when to be good followers instead. They also sense when to aggressively maneuver and when it's better to pause and let things sink in. Great leaders take ownership of results without becoming too extreme. Remember, we have also looked at one of the books that we looked at in the past few months has to do with taking ownership as well. It's a book on taking ownership of our life, which I can't remember what is that book particularly now. Yeah, I remember What You Really Need to Lead, The Power of Thinking and Acting Like an Owner, written by Robert Kaplan. What you really need to lead. So you got to understand that You can take this ownership to an extreme level, but what this dichotomy of leadership is trying to teach us here is to balance the demands on yourself with the demands on your mission and with the demands on people who are around you or the people you are trying to lead. So, great leaders take ownership of results without becoming too extreme. Specifically, to become a great leader, you've got to learn how to balance the big three dichotomies which leaders face all the time. Those three dichotomies is what I've gone ahead of myself to give you. That is the dichotomies of leading people, leading the mission, and leading yourself. They're going to have to be balanced. What is a dichotomy? A dichotomy is a contrast, is a divide. How do you not tilt to the extreme? Because if you tilt to the extreme and you don't know how to toe the middle line, then you are going to be out of sync. And the moment you are out of sync, your life becomes warped. But we don't want our lives to be warped, and you don't want your life to be warped. Therefore, you've got to have to master the skill of balancing these three demands of your life: demand of your leading of people, demand of your mission, the demand of yourself. Those three legs, very important. Don't forget, the dichotomy of leadership has to do with balancing the heart of leadership in those three areas of demands in your life: area of leading people, area of leading your mission, and leading yourself. And I think leading yourself is most critical of these three things, because you can't give what you don't have. You can only give what you have. So it's good to also pay a great deal of attention to yourself so that you become master at dealing with your emotion, dealing with your weaknesses, dealing with your strength, and to leverage your strength and to cover your weaknesses. Know yourself, actually. In actual fact, a verse of scriptures came to my mind while I was preparing for this, which is in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16. I remember sharing this verse of scriptures with my wife sometimes ago. It says, take heed unto yourself. This is 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16. And I'm reading from King James Version. Maybe I can read it from continuing them. For in doing this, you shall both save yourself and them that hear you. You shall both save yourself and them that hear you. To me, this means I want to read it from New Living Translation or Living Bible. To me, this means saving yourself, leading yourself comes first. You got to know how to lead yourself. If you don't know how to lead yourself, others will lead you. Now, it says, New Living Bible says, keep a close watch on all you do and think. Stay true to what is right, and God will bless you and use you to help others. That is what King James, Living Bible says. But then we could look at other things. We could look at other scriptural verses of scriptures and be able to also see how it is translated in those other translations of scriptures. So it is therefore important. Take note of those three legs. There are three pillars of your life that you always have to negotiate and navigate through them. And you got to become become a skillful master at balancing the demands of those three pillars. To become a better leader, find and maintain the right balance. Joko Willink, this author, Lee Babin says, every behavior or characteristic carried out by a leader can be taken too far. Leaders can become too extreme and upset the balance required to effectively lead a team. When balance is lost, leadership suffers and the team's performance rapidly declines. That is very, very true. Your life impinges, your life has an effect on others, good or bad. But to be a good leader, you got to have to understand that you're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for others. Because the purpose of life is not actually to live for ourselves, it's to live for the blessing of others. And if you are not careful, our influence can be damaging to others, or it can also be inspiring to others. We got to have to know how we can inspire others, even in the face of different conflicts that might arise. Because sometimes there is something in us that demands to want to be inspired, and there is something in us that also resists being wanted to resist being influenced by others, especially if it becomes didactic in influence. Because anything you do, you teach order, didactically, yes, could become repulsed by those who are trying to do, especially if it's on a close contact. Have you noticed that your mates, people whom you grow up with, people whom you went to school with, people whom you graduated with, they are not they are not the greatest bunch of people that listen to you, even if wisdom is flown from your mouth. Why? Because of familiarity. For God to be able to know that and don't be frustrated. You are not sent to your mates. You are sent to others. And those whom you are sent to, they will listen to you. So, also in the same book, Joko Willink and Lee Babin says balance in leadership is crucial to victory. It must be monitored at all times and it must be modulated to specific situations as they arise. It is not easy to maintain the constant shift, continual modulation, and frequent adjustment necessary to balance all the dichotomies across every spectrum of leadership characteristics. And it's a wide spectrum, truly. Yeah, this skill is essential for effective leadership, the skill of balancing. Every good leader must develop the ability to recognize, understand, and adjust that balance. While it isn't easy, through knowledge, discipline practice, and sustained effort, anyone can master finding the equilibrium in the dichotomy of leadership. Those who do will dominate their battlefield and lead their teams to victory. So, let me give you the structure of the book because that can help you. One of the ways by which I learn is to understand the structure. If I can have the book into structure, then it's easy. I remember easily. That's one of the ways why I remember Bible verses as well. If I can understand the structure, I know where to look for. So, and if I can adequately or succinctly recognize that structure, it sticks to me like a a leaf sticks to soup within the context of African language. Okay, so the first thing we're looking at is balancing people. The ultimate dichotomy in war is a leader has to get close to and care deeply for his or her people, and yet still be willing to put them in harm's way if the mission requires it. Wow. Similarly, in business, you need a close relationship with your people without sacrificing the ability to ask them to do what is truly required to complete a task or a project, to find the right balance with people. In order to find the right balance with people, we're focusing on people for today. There are also three things you need to master. You need to own your results, but empower others. Secondly, you need to be resolute without becoming overbearing. Thirdly, you need to know when to mentor and when to fire. I'll put it this way: when to mentor and when to torment. When to torment others who are refusing your mentorship, but they are now wanting to disrupt your. So I was just looking for something alliteration that I can use in place of fire. Know when to mentor or when to fire, when to let go, when to let go. When those who your mentees don't want to learn anymore, when to let go. You need to know how to do that. And then balancing the mission. There are also three things under that. We are not going to focus on those. I'll read through them, but we are not going to focus on them for tonight. Next Friday and the Friday after that, we should finish this in 3 weeks, really. So balancing the mission. He said good leaders know exactly what their objective is, but at the same time, have the situational awareness to recognize emerging threats and opportunities and respond accordingly. This is more like some of the things you are taught in the leadership school or in business school. I remember going through starting a leadership and management course, and one of the things they make you to understand is that there are external environment, business thriving in the external environment. You got to have to understand what those external environments are. And also, you got to also know your internal environment. One of the ways to be able to identify and see how good you are doing is being able to use the SWOT analysis. It's a tool that helps you to know your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Whereas in the external environment, you now need to know the political, the social, the environmental, and the technological uh, uh, factors that are operating in the external environment that you need to know how to mitigate against those things in order for you to survive in the business world. So, because this book is talking about emerging threats and opportunities, that's what makes me to make mention of that and respond accordingly. You have to balance going for it with changes in the environment all the time. To balance your mission intelligently, you also need three things. You need to train hard, but also train smart. Working hard, but know how to work smart too. You need to be aggressive, not being reckless. You need to be disciplined, but not rigid, not being inflexible. Many of us are too inflexible, and therefore we're not able to adult and adapt. Also, you need to hold people accountable, but without holding hands. Now, balancing yourself. Great leaders are willing and able to lead, but they are also willing to lean on the expertise of people who know more. Remember, learning leadership says to us that as long as you are learning, that's the last book we finished summarizing. As long a leader is a lifetime learner, is a lifetime student. You may not necessarily be in a school with formal education. You may not necessarily go to school with formal education in mind to get you formal qualification, but you must be a learner for life. And learner for life observes, and learner for life asks questions, and learner for life doesn't shy away from new knowledge. It asks questions. A lot of things have happened with certain countries in Africa with regards to the emergency of the blockchain technology and the cryptocurrencies, that some are hurried. They are quick to ban this because they have no understanding of what it was. We have seen some nations of the world that are banned, like China. 2014, China banned the same thing, but they had another committee to look into it. Today, they are establishing their own CBDC, their own crypto central bank for digital currency. So this is what new knowledge that is disruptive. This is what it does. It attacks you. And guess what? We're living in an age of disruptive technology. So what that therefore means is that when the technology comes and is booming, it's gone through the mass adoption. It's now in the mainstream. Everybody is now, it may be too late for you to get to ride on the waves of it. So that's why when it first shows up, you don't need to say, don't react, respond. Just respond. That is, what is this thing they are talking about? Let me get to know about this thing. It may be of blessing to me, it may be of whatever. Let me just get to know. Let me ask those who know. Let me get to know about what is it all about, so that you can ride the waves of it. When every Tom, Dick, and Harry are now ready to get onto you, it may be too late for you to take advantage of what is in there. That's the reason. This is the age in which we are living in. Is the age in which knowledge becomes obsolete within 1.5 years. And new knowledge shows up. And the word of God has prophesied that in the last day, Daniel chapter 12, verse 3, it says, people shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. This is the age of mass transportation. This is the age of absolute quick transportation. Can you imagine from now? We used to write letters and it would take weeks. I remember when my wife and I were cutting, and I was in the university. Oh, every day I will go to the Potter's Lodge to look to see if I've got a letter from my wife, then my fiancé. Every day, some letters take 2 weeks, some takes 3 weeks, some take a week to get to me on campus. But nowadays, yeah, there's a downside to it as well. But then at the same time, quick information reaches us. Within a blink of an eye, you get information. Knowledge is increasing. So, but we would not embrace that. See what the postal services all over the world have become today. Our own Royal Mail is trying to adjust right now, and they are trying to adapt. Why? Because they are becoming an obsolete. How many people send letters? Yeah, parcels are being sent, but in terms of letters, emails do it better. So balancing yourself. Great leaders are willing and able to lead, but they are also willing to learn on the expertise of people who know more. And I tell you, people of the younger generation, oh, they are so knowledgeable with all this new technology. Those of us who have gone past 40, 50, we are just doing a catch up. But whatever it is we have to do, let's do a catch up and catch up with the knowledge as long as we're still on earth, so that nobody can bamboozle you, nobody can take you for a ride. So you have to balance when to be a leader and when to be a follower. To balance yourself effectively, you need to plan, but don't overplan. Overplan leads to paralysis of analysis. Be humble. Secondly, you be humble, but at the same time, not passive. That is, be humble. Humble basically means stay under to learn, but don't be passive. Don't be reactive, but be responsive. Stay focused, yet detached. Now, let's start with balancing people. Remember 3 legs under balancing people as well. Hone your results, but empower others. Be resolute with others. Be resolute. Yeah. Be resolute without becoming overbearing, and know when to mentor and when to fire. So let's start with own your results, but empower others. The ultimate dichotomy in war is a leader has to get close to and care deeply for his or her people. I've read that before. I'm just reiterating it. Remember, these two people are naval officers. So their mentality, they were trained in the act of war, in the act of aggression, in the act of leading people, in the act of getting results with minimal damage. So, there is this guy who that I love to watch his movie. I've forgotten his name now. The guy is half Chinese, half American or so. I've forgotten his name, but he once acted like a SEAL officer. I love watching the guy's movie. I've forgotten his name now. Anybody who remembers his name, you can always tell me later on. Tall guy, but his demeanor is very unassuming. But When he engages in a fight, in any mission, in any undercover mission, is very deadly. Very deadly. So to be a good leader, you need to provide your people with enough guidance so they get the right things done, but at the same time, they also need to have the freedom to make decisions. Also, there is something in there that needs, especially we parents, we need to, sometimes we parents don't know when our children are transitioning between being children to becoming adults. We still want to hold on to the fact that they are children. But when reality hits, that's when they don't want us to be involved in their decision making because they would say they will take it. But if you have every parenting paralyzes the children. There is need for them to allow them to make decisions, make mistakes, and then you can then help them to see how they can correct their mistakes. Because if you don't allow them to try things out and fail, they become they become puppets all their lives. So to be a good leader, you need to provide your people, your children, your workforce, your employees, your departmental workers. You need to provide them with enough guidance so they get the right things done. But at the same time, they also need to have the freedom to make decision. This is a act of leadership, making decisions and making the right decisions. To learn from their mistakes and ultimately to lead themselves. In practice, this is a matter of avoiding either being a micromanager or using a completely hands-off leadership style. So you need to know how to balance using a hands-off leadership style and micromanaging. People you micromanage don't develop, and people you leave to their heroes, you damage them at the same time. So there's a dichotomy here that needs to have to be balanced. There is a balance, that has to be ensured. There is a balance here that is needed to help to be able to see and solve a little bit, but at the same time, don't heavily micromanage. So because micromanagers try to control every thought, every action of each individual on their team. Don't control every action of your child as well as he's growing up. This is especially unhelpful as a management style if you're in a dynamic and unpredictable environment where changes occur rapidly and some creativity and personal initiative will be called for. But you can be there for them to bounce ideas off you, to ask for your input, to ask for your advice, to say, this is what I'm thinking. How do you think I need to approach it? So the problems with micromanagement are people lose initiative and have to be directed. Instead of seeking solutions, people get into the habit of waiting to be told what to do. Nobody will try anything bold and aggressive. Everyone will stay in their own silo for fear of overstepping their bounds. So, however, if you go too far and have an anything goes or answer philosophy, then everyone will move in random directions rather than working as a team. The common problems with being too hands-off are there are problems with micromanaging. There are also problems with hands-off. Now, the problem associated with using a hands-off leadership style is that there will be a lack of vision and coordination in what you are trying to do and how to achieve it. Everyone will overstep their bounds because it won't be clear who is authorized to do what. The team will do whatever looks easiest rather than move in any strategic direction. There will be confusion because too many people will be trying to lead at once. So to hit the right balance between becoming a micromanager or being too hands-off as a leader, you need to create a situation where your people know exactly what is expected of them, but at the same time have the freedom to make their own decisions and take the lead. I think what comes to my mind with that is that freedom, giving freedom to people which is part of what we parents need to be able to help our children with. Being free does not mean you do whatever you want to do. Being free is to help you to know how to do the right thing within the canopy of your freedom, within the enclosure of your freedom. Because if you just do what you want to do, your freedom will encroach on other people's rights. If you are not considerate, and if you do not take others into consideration. So to be free is to actually do what you're supposed to do, doing the right thing for the right reason. Very, very crucial, very, very important. So if you feel you have been acting as a micromanager, pull back from giving detailed directions and instead explain what the objective is, and then allow the people on the ground to use their best ideas to achieve that goal. So one of the best ways you could also do is this, especially I'm talking about parents-child relationship now, is to ask questions. If you give your child an assignment, ask question. How do you plan to carry out this task? Let him tell you how he wants to do it. And in the process, you may detect a loophole, but you may suggest, well, may I suggest to you that, what about looking this way? If he says, I would like to do that, then let him go ahead, let him do it. As long as the mistake is not to be damaging to his life, damaging to the life, to the family or to the relationship, let him go make that mistake and learn from his mistakes. And then he can come back to you, that one, I wish I listened to you, I didn't listen to you, blah, 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 blah. Part of this leadership thing, dichotomy of leadership, is also knowing when to put your foot down and when to allow for freedom. I could remember my son was telling us many years after he was grown up to say, when he was young, I told him, son, would you like to go and learn how to play keyboard? He said he doesn't want keyboard. He wants to play trombone. So he was in a private school whereby they have basic lessons. He was playing trombone. We bought him a trombone. He was playing trombone. But now, as an adult, he said, oh, you wish he had learned keyboard. But I told you I wanted to enroll you in school to learn keyboard for extra lesson. You said you don't want it. He said, Dad, but you should have forced me. And looking back, I said, he didn't have the right perspective. But I didn't also want to force it too much on him to say, I actually bought him a keyboard, but he never touched it. But later on, back in his adult years, and I say, oh, you should have forced it on me. I remember when I also enrolled him to learn how to swim. Because I started learning how to swim at 41. He was just a young boy. I said, son, we are going to learn to, I'm enrolling in swimming school. And he was in that swimming school. He was the longest he was the longest learning student in that swimming school. Today he's a master. He can do what I can do. Breaststrokes, backstrokes, leg strokes, front strokes, all kind of strokes. Me, I only just know go across the pool, come back on the pool. Don't do too much for yourself. But I'm glad that he agreed to that, because at the same time, I didn't want to force anything on him, but I could see ahead that it's a skill that he might become handy for him later on in years. But sometimes in balancing being hands-off and in micromanaging, you have to learn how to strike that balance by seeing that this guy can't see clearly. Let me put a little bit more pressure to help him, so that when later on in life he can look back and say, I'm glad my parent did that. I'm glad my father did that. I'm glad my mother did that. So the wisdom to strike that balance without releasing too much freedom to those kids in the early years is critical. So If you feel you have been a little too hands off, start giving more guidance and teach you what the boundaries are and the action which should be taken when you bump up against those boundaries. You also might need to designate a team leader and give them proper authority so you don't get analysis paralysis caused by too many people trying to lead out. Also, make sure you explain the end objective in a simple, clear, and concise manner so everyone gets on the same page. Willink and Babin says, the key is balance, maintaining an equilibrium where the troops have the guidance to execute, but at the same time, the freedom to make decisions and lead. In a rapidly changing environment, your team has to have that freedom to be able to make quick decisions that can save the team. Some decisions are instinctive, and some decisions come through practice. Some decisions don't necessarily have to be a committee gathered around to do that. When you are leading an organization, sometimes you have to make a quick decision on some issues and then can explain to the team later on why you have to make that. So we continue. Now, the second leg of balancing people is be resolute without becoming overbearing. Some leaders are too lenient and nothing worthwhile ever gets done. Others are so driven they become overbearing and obnoxious. Good leadership is to set standards for your team and then drive your people to achieve and maintain those standards. You can't be overbearing or inflexible, particularly about matters which are of little, if any, strategic importance. Strategic importance is key in leading people, and it takes the leader to know when to strike, when to help the team to make a very good strategic decision. So, to find the right balance in this area, make a judgment call about when and where to hold the line and when to allow some slack. You also need to decide when you should allow your subordinate leaders to take ownership of what is going on. I'm telling you, this is very critical. You cannot be running, you cannot light fires and be running up and down to keep them burning all at the same time. There have to be capable people in your team, people that may have to be trained to hone certain responsibilities. So that is very, very, in business, there's a lot of talk about leadership capital as the best way to strike the right balance in deciding when you should allow your subordinate leaders to take ownership of what is going on. So the concept is every leader has a finite amount of power, which is built gradually over time by demonstrating you have the long-term welfare of the team and mission in mind. You don't want to expend your hard-earned leadership capital on matters which are trivial or strategically unimportant. To avoid this, clarify where standard cannot be compromised and other areas where some slack is fine. Spend lots of time explaining your why to your people, and it will be much easier to hit the right balance between leniency and being overbearing. When your people know why something needs to be achieved, when they know why something needs to be achieved, they will feel more energized to maintain the standards you are suggesting. Treat everyone as what they are. Thinking individuals will become more motivated when they understand why your objective is important. And this also applies to home as well, as much as it applies to business. Remember, your home is also a business entity because of the interactions that are involved among all the members of the home. And especially if you also have some people living with you, you are not only just a nuclear family, you have extended members. So in running the affairs of the home, there has to be a way in which the chores, the task, whatever the expenditures, everything in the home have to be communicated, and everybody pulling their weight, everybody doing their best. So you got to treat everyone as what they are. Thinking individuals will become more motivated when they understand why your objective is important. To take a simple example of this dichotomy in action, consider an executive vice president, EVP, who was frustrated by cell phones ringing during his business presentations. His first overbearing approach to the problem was to ban cell phones at meetings outright and force people to hold their phones up to show they were powered down. He would not start a meeting until everyone complied. When he mentioned this to a consultant, he asked, "How important are your meetings?" The executive vice president stated his meetings were very important because they set up systems and more. When pressed, however, the EVP, the executive vice president, did admit items like an immediate pressing issue with a major customer, a major safety issue, or a serious quality issue would take precedence over his meeting. By forcing people to disconnect, the EVP is also making it impossible for anyone to be informed of any major issues which might arise. So when everything is factored in, the executive vice president agreed he was wasting his leadership capital on enforcing his no cell phones policy. Instead, he made it clear cell phones are allowed, but they should only be used for matters which are crucially important. This approach was resolute without being overbearing, and it raised perceptions of his leadership norms. So, Willing Kambabin says, the best military leaders, like the best business leaders, take the time to explain why so that the team understands it. They don't force things down the throat of their subordinates, and they also don't sweat the small stuff. That way, when they explain the importance of something that really matters, it doesn't get lost on the troops. Then the troops are far more likely to execute what the leader puts forth. Also, they continue, as a leader, you have to balance the dichotomy to be resolute where it matters, but never overbearing, never inflexible and uncompromising on matters of little importance to the overall good of the team and the strategic mission. Leadership at every level is a critical factor in whether a team succeeds or fails. Very crucial. Now, the third leg that we're looking at, we got 7 minutes more. Hopefully, I should be able to finish that in the next 7 minutes. So, know when to mentor and when to fire. Now, this is it. You cannot always just be Father Christmas. You cannot just say, I don't want to hurt people's feeling, and then you do what is wrong, or you jeopardize the possibility, you jeopardize the opportunity and privilege of position of the company or of the mission. Why? Because you don't want to appear mean to others. But if you have to fire, then you fire. If you have to tell somebody to say, thank you for what you have done, but we won't need your service anymore. Or you can do it in wisdom. There are different ways to do it. If you fire people every time they make a mistake, it will make you look like a strong and capable leader. I wanted to use an example of my team, Arsenal Football Club, but let me get out of that because I notice a pattern. Sometimes when some of the players make mistakes, our current manager, we just put them to the back burner. So let me leave that, because not all of you are Arsenal supporters, and I know some of you may be giving me sticks now to say, it's Liverpool, is this, is Tottenham, is Man City. Don't worry, let's leave that one. So the reality is, most of the time, underperformers need to be trained more than they need to be fired. Great leaders make every effort to help underperformers improve. They mentor people to become effective. Great leaders accept fully the reality they are responsible for the output of all the individuals on their team. Can you see that? They are not only responsible for the outcome of the team, but responsible for the individual effectiveness in terms of providing environment for increasing their value, their skill. Therefore, they push people to do their best work. Leaders also intuitively know not every person will be suited to all positions, and there will be times individuals will need to transition to other sports where their talent are a better fit. Occasionally, there are people who simply cannot perform to the required level in any capacity. Once a leader has exhausted remedial measures through coaching, mentoring, and counseling, the leader then must make the tough call, remove that individual from the team. The dichotomy in this situation is balancing between taking care of individuals by keeping them around even if they lack the skill set to do the job properly, and protecting the team by removing people from positions where they negatively impact the team and the mission. A leader must be loyal to his individual team members and take care of them, but at the same time, he must be loyal to the team itself and ensure that every member of the team has a net positive impact and doesn't detract from mission execution. Admittedly, there has to be a balance in the efforts to help substandard performers improve. That's right. Now, some people, when they are promoted to new positions, they become paralyzed by the demands of the new position. But I remember sharing it with one of my pastors there that, listen, new position just basically tells you you need to grow up in the position. Don't sit on your laurels. See way to challenge yourself to grow. If you are not stretched, you will not grow. You got to have to be stretched to grow. So it's important for one to know that when God puts you in a position of promotion, when He promotes you, He's the one who qualifies you, but He also knows you have what it takes to occupy that position. So let that come out as you put yourself under pressure to be stretched. Because if you don't stretch, you will shrink. There is no neutral zone in life. You will shrink. The other members of the team will notice the resources being invested to bring those who are struggling up to speed. If they cannot improve for whatever reason, there does come a time or a point where you have to admit they need to be let go and make that happen. If you fail to do that as a leader, everyone will question your judgment. William Kababe, the authors of this book, says, we are often asked, when is the right time to fire someone? Some leaders are too quick to pull the trigger and fire people without giving them the right guidance and enough opportunity to gain competency. Other leaders wait to let someone go even after the individual has shown no potential of becoming competent and is negatively impacting the team. The answer is this. When a leader has done everything possible to get an individual up to speed without seeing results, the time has come to let that individual go. Don't be too quick to fire, but don't wait too long. Find the balance and hold the line. They continue. Most underperformers don't need to be fired. They need to be led. But once every effort has been made to help an underperformer improve, and all efforts have failed, a leader has to make the tough call to let that person go. This is the duty and responsibility of every leader. When a leader has a substandard individual on the team, that leader takes ownership of the individual and ensures that the individual gets the training, coaching, and mentoring needed to get up to speed. That personal investment usually pays dividends. The substandard individual improves and becomes a solid contributor to the team. But sometimes the substandard individual doesn't improve. Sometimes he or she can't improve. Instead of focusing on one individual, leaders must remember that there is a team and that the performance of the team trumps the performance of a single individual. Instead of continuing to invest in one subpar performer, once a concerted effort has been made to coach and train that individual to no avail, the leader must remove the individual. It can be one of the hardest decisions the leader has to make, but it is the right one. But may I also chip in at this point in time that it's not only in the skills set to perform the task or function, but even in relating with one another. There are people skills and there are tasks, there are skills that are meant to execute a task. Sometimes you can be good with skills to execute a task, but poor at your people skills. And you see, that may jeopardize your task. And people may not remember your task being done efficiently or effectively anymore, but they are much more hampered by the lack of your people skills. So there is need for balance. This is why it's so good that when you focus on the end result, the outcome of a task given to you, you got to have to also grow in people skills. Check out the areas where people complain about you and work on it and let God help you. Let God, oh, I've come to the end. I didn't realize that, in fact, I finished at the right time. So that's all I have for you for today. Thank you for joining me for today. And next week, we continue with the second leg of understanding the dichotomy of leadership, which has to do with balancing the mission. Thank you so much. I am Tunde Ogedembe. Thank you. God bless you. See you on Sunday during our service here at Kingdom Arena and online on Facebook, and not only on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you, every one of you. Oh, I think my wife was typing Chan. No, the guy was not Chan, not Jackie Chan. Um, I'll get his name sometimes later on. I'll get his name. Thank you very much. God bless you. See you on Sunday. Thank you. Bye bye.